Smokepit Fairytales by Trip Ainsworth. Chapter 25. Gilgamesh and Enkidu.
Sergeant!
God damn it, bitch, what do you want?
Yes, Gunnery Sergeant?
What happened to your face?
It was 6:45 on Monday morning. The platoon had just gotten back from a run, which was not fun when your whole body ached from a car crash and was painted yellow, purple, and black. I lost a fight with a mountain lion.
What?
Gunny Chansworth rattled her head in disbelief. I was out in the desert with a couple of my bros and we had to jump down this cliff to get away from a cougar.
Have you gone to medical yet?
Chansworth actually showed a tone of concern. It caught me off guard. She was normally one of the most despicable human beings I'd ever met. I had a corpsman look me over. They put me on a heavy regimen of changing my socks.
Did they at least give you Motrin?
Yes, Gunnery Sergeant.
All right.
Chansworth looked around for a second as if she was trying to remember something important.
Don't forget, the company has annual training today at the base theater.
I'll have my Marines there, Gunnery Sergeant. I showered, grabbed chow, and corralled the Marines cross base to the theater. They all gave me funny looks, but I guess I couldn't blame them. Pendleton's Base Theater was a grand old theater back in the 50s, but it hadn't had an ounce of upkeep since then. My brain was still a bag of scrambled eggs, so situational awareness wasn't at its peak. I threw myself into a seat next to Rayner, so if anything, I could joke about how stupid the training was going to be. Glaedwine sat in the seat next to me. We hadn't exactly been avoiding each other since the ball, but we were at a bit of a standoff. I guess we found ourselves guilty. I missed our conversations on the smoke deck. Glaedwine leaned over to me.
Sergeant, what's the point of these?
They want to make sure that you know how to not beat your wife and rape people.
I don't have a wife.
Glaedwine smiled. Okay, well, then they want to make sure you know how not to rape your husband.
Ah.
Glaedwine looked around the room.
So you were attacked by a mountain lion?
Something like that. Lots of blood, fire, twisted metal, alcohol, and pain.
Sounds like a party.
Yeah. I laughed, then wheezed and coughed and grabbed my chest. It still hurt to laugh. The theater was called to attention and sat back to rest. The company commander introduced the brief. He told us that we were about to receive good training that day and we should pay attention because these things weren't something to gaff off. The CO left. A random staff sergeant climbed to the stage. He started off the bit like every presenter does in these briefs. Good morning, Marines. I'm Staff Sergeant Davis, and I will be giving you the next period of instruction. These briefs are designed to be interactive, so the more you participate, the quicker things will go. I'm going to start off with a question. Why is it that Marines will die for each other in combat, but leave each other behind when we get home? There's a series of videos we're going to watch, then we're going to have a discussion about them before we start. Do we have any questions? I wanted to say, yeah, how the fuck did the Marine Corps evolve to a point where we're sat down and shown videos like fucking 12-year-olds instead of put through realistic training? But I didn't want an ass chewing, so I kept quiet. The lights went out and the theater's screen lit up. The Marines in civilian attire were drinking at a bar. A basketball game was on the TV, and they called each other Devil Dog and Leatherneck. They watched a blonde woman in a skimpy dress come in and sit at the table with a fat bald guy in his 40s with a Hawaiian button-down, a gold chain necklace, and a goatee. The Marines made comments to each other mostly about the blonde woman's breasts and kept drinking. The blonde woman excused herself to the bathroom. While she was gone, her bald, goateed date slipped something into her drink. The three Marines saw what happened and commented to each other about how messed up the situation was. The woman comes back, drinks the drinks, and starts feeling woozy. Her overweight, bald date offers to take her home, and they leave. The lights in the theater came back, and Staff Sergeant Davis hopped onto the stage. Okay, well, let's talk about what we just saw. He pointed to random Marines around the room, and they gave him the cookie-cutter good boy responses.
The Marines shouldn't have been bystanders.
They didn't protect someone they could see was about to get harmed.
The Marines should have told the girl or the bartender. Then one of the Marines stood up and said, Staff Sergeant, that's the woman's fault. The theater went silent. How so, Marine? Davis asked. The guy she was on a date with looked like a convicted child molester. There's no way a woman that hot would be on a date with a douchebag-looking tool like that. The theater erupted in laughter and was quickly halted by someone screaming,
Why's that funny?
I looked back to find a short-haired, double-chin female captain from the S3 with Elmer's glue for skin and a face that would disgust Satan. She stood with her arms crossed, hating the Marines.
Well,
Staff Sergeant Davis shook his head. Well, the captain's right. Why is that funny? The crowd murmured. The ass-kissers offered their brainwashed opinions. Raynor whispered to me,
Why is it there's always some fucking pogue bitch trying to ruin everyone's fun? We're joking around, dude. We're not actually going to pillage a village. Just because your uncle came in your ass doesn't mean you have to ruin everyone else's fun.
It makes the victim look like it's their fault, one of the Marines volunteered. I still don't think a chick that attractive should have been in a room with a creep like that. I said to Raynor, Glaedwine, what do you think?
I'd rather cauterize my vagina shut with a curling iron.
The staff sergeant quieted us down and played the next video. A gunnery sergeant and a sergeant walked into the office at a supply warehouse. The sergeant was a highly motivated young female who was excited to deploy with the unit soon. The two of them stood in front of their company commander, who also just so happened to have the face of a date rapist. The captain welcomed the sergeant to the unit and undressed her with his eyes. Over the next few days, the captain said a few things to the sergeant that could have either been taken as legitimate comments or blatant advances, depending on how you wanted to interpret them. Eventually, the captain comes up to the sergeant and proposed that the two of them go to a movie that he'd already bought tickets for. The sergeant was crept out and denied the offer. As the captain walked away, the gunnery sergeant asked him what had just happened. The captain tells the gunny that they were just talking about last-minute pre-deployment issues that need to be taken care of. A few more unintelligent scenes go by, and the captain corners the sergeant and demands that she come to his house that night to discuss pre-deployment things. The sergeant said no, and the captain reminded her that he was an officer, and that's an order. The scene changes to the captain in his house drinking. The door opens, and the sergeant is standing there. The captain grabbed her and started raping her. All right. The staff sergeant stopped the video. What happened there?
and no bullshit answers.
The troll of an excuse for an officer screamed from the back. That captain is a disgusting fucking thing, I complained to Raynor.
I know, man.
One of the supply marines stood and said, She was just trying to work some overtime, Raw. That's what we signed up to do. He didn't sign up to do shit, fucking faggot box kicker. I graped. Another marine stood up. Staff Sergeant, what happened was the sergeant was approached by her CO and fell victim to him while her staff and COs just watched. So the moral of the story is to not be a bystander? The staff sergeant fished for an answer. Glaedwine stood up.
Staff Sergeant, this video is offensive towards women.
How's that, Corporal?
Because if the sergeant in that video had half of a brain, she would have sought help from her staff and COs. She wouldn't have gone to the captain's house. And she was obviously weak, because she was overpowered by someone who was extremely inebriated. That video told me that the Marine Corps thinks all females, regardless of rank, are stupid, don't work out, or know how to defend themselves, and don't know how to take care of themselves in the working environment. What that sergeant should have done was shot the captain. However, since this video was made by people who look down on women, she didn't have a concealed weapons permit. While it wasn't initially her fault, she did nothing to take herself out of a bad situation.
So, Corporal, you think it's acceptable to shoot your CO?
Staff Sergeant, if my CO was trying to rape me, I would put a bullet in his face.
Okay, well, we have one more video and we'll take a break. Staff Sergeant Davis dimmed the lights. I gave Glaedwine a thumbs up and nodded. She smiled back at me. The rest of the videos were just as ridiculous. People killed themselves after showing every sign of trouble and no one helped. Marines got home from Iraq and beat their wives. They stole money and did drugs. Every video illustrated that the higher-ups of the Marine Corps obviously had no idea what was happening at the lower levels. They were a knee-jerk reaction to the public accusing the Corps of these problems, which did exist, and now the Marine generals could say, look, we're fixing the problem instead of reconnecting with the Marines and actually doing anything worth note. The training ended, and we left the theater. The Marines had carpooled on the way over. The few of us that had driven alone offered our seats to people to make the rides back less crowded. I took Raynor and Glaedwine.
When'd you get this, dude?
Raynor asked about the GTO. Last week. I started the engine. Glaedwine climbed into the back.
This is really nice, Sergeant.
Thanks.
What'd you do with the Jeep, dude?
I still have it.
Are you just taking up 2 spots at the barracks?
Not really. I'm letting my buddy borrow the Jeep. He crashed his car and didn't have another ride. Raynor looked over the wood paneling on the dash.
So how stupid was that training?
Right? It's like, hey, I know how not to do drugs, beat my wife, and kill myself. I pulled onto Vandergrift. You guys need anything from the PX before we head back? Glaedwine shook her head.
No. But training like this is pointless. Rapists and murderers aren't going to stop doing what they're doing because they were all of a sudden informed what they were doing is wrong.
Raynor rolled his eyes.
Yeah, they should just cut rapists' dicks off and be done with it.
Yeah, and I hate that what she's wearing isn't an excuse argument. I lit a cigarette. Saying that implies that I'm just some fucking animal and I can't help myself from fucking something shiny that catches my eye. Rapist assholes are rapist assholes. No brief is gonna stop that. So why the fuck do I have to waste half my day sitting through this bullshit?
Because you're not allowed to rape anyone, but the big green digital weenie is lubed up and ready to penetrate. What I think is funny is that the staff sergeant dude was talking about fraternization, and I've seen that guy in the chow hall eating alone with the female lance corporal. Fucking douchebag.
Well, that's the thing. Fraternization happens. Most of the time it's consensual and a relationship forms. Then it becomes sexual assault when the junior Marine, usually female, decided she wants out and thinks that if she calls rape, she won't look like a harlot. And the Marine Corps blindly takes the woman's side of it and only prosecutes the male, when both of them should have been court-martialed. There was this Marine here a few years ago. Her dad was a sergeant major at one of the other units in Pendleton. She showed up as a lance corporal right out of the schoolhouse. She starts having sex with one of the sergeants, and after they got caught, the sergeant gets promoted to lance corporal. A few weeks later, she gets meritoriously promoted to corporal. She wasn't even there a year before they made her a sergeant.
I don't know. I think it's probably because Daddy was the sergeant major, not because she's a chick.
Wait, was that Garcia?
Oh, so you know.
I know the chick. Her dad was the most fucked up sergeant major I ever fucking had. He would always tell us that it was the lance corporal's fault the battalion was all fucked up. And I thought that if the battalion is fucked up, it's probably the higher-ups' fault because they're the ones that could do something about it. But yeah, that fuck brought his asshole daughter over to ComCam and made us do a fucking dog and pony show for her before she even graduated fucking high school. Then he works his fucking slimy sergeant major fingers and gets this bitch in the MOS. Now there's another useless fucking turd running around pretending like they're hot shit. It's like, hey bitch, I've seen you in your chucks. I would be fucking embarrassed to be a corporal or a sergeant with that little experience. I don't give a fuck if they end up having a good attitude about it and they're just trying to learn instead of being a fucking dickhead. There's been 3 fucking wars in the last 15 years. Why the fuck are you promoting someone who hasn't been there when you have 10 other guys the same rank who just got back from their second fucking deployment?
Why don't you tell me how you really feel?
No, dude, it's bullshit. I mean, I made it to sergeant. I'm over the hump, but I was a fucking lance corporal for 4 fucking years, and I watched all these fucking retards get put on boards and get promoted because they either kissed ass or sucked someone's dick. I flicked my cigarette out the window. That's another thing that fucking pisses me off. If these fucking females want us to stop accusing them of fucking the master sergeant for a promotion, then they should probably stop fucking the master sergeant. There was this worthless fucking bitch when I was a lance back at division between deployments. If a male Marine went to the master sergeant for something, he'd yell at us for not using the chain of command, but the females could walk right up to him and it was okay. And this cunt Slater would be in his office for hours at a time with the fucking door closed. That fuck got to division right when I got back from my first pump and we were both lances. I got back from Afghanistan and she goes to Iraq and I'm running around trying not to get my ass shot off and not to lose my fucking legs because I stepped on the fucking wrong rock. Meanwhile, Slater goes to fucking Al-Assad, sits on her fucking pussy, doesn't do shit besides sit by the master sergeant and takes photos of the generals. 8 months later, when I come home, she's a motherfucking platoon sergeant. What the fuck is that about? Glaedwine leaned forward between the GTO's bucket seats.
Sergeant?
Yeah?
You were ranting and missed the turn.
Motherfucker! Raynor rolled his window up.
But yeah, that shit's fucked up, dude.
I wish I had a fat set of tits and could just fuck my way to the top. I'm fucking jealous.
Well, if it helps. We're not all like that. But the women who aren't fucking the staff hate the ones who are more than you do.
Yeah, because 1 or 2 sluts doing it makes y'all look like whores because y'all get grouped together.
No, seriously, Sergeant. There's more than a few doing it. And it's fucking deplorable. I know that they're really just embarrassing themselves, but when you're one of the people that has to deal with the consequences, it's fucking frustrating.
It's just like those videos.
No, it's not. I pointed at him. In the videos, the man is the bad guy, when in reality, both of them need to be put in front of a fucking firing squad. And in those videos, all those dudes were date rapists, not fuck me for rank dudes. And I don't understand the date rape guy. It's like, you're gonna see these people at work tomorrow. What exact, how do you plan on getting away with that?
I thought it was funny that all that bad shit happened to Pogues and Boots.
Well, then there was that one where the dude took the chick home and was banging her, then halfway through she decided she didn't want it anymore and told him to stop, and the guy ended up in jail. Like, that's fucked up. How are you gonna dress like a slut, grind on a dude all night, get drunk as fuck with him, go home with him, put his dick in your mouth, then the next day say you didn't mean it and call it rape? It's not rape if you were sucking his dick, you fucking slut. That's bad decision making.
I feel the same way, Sergeant. I honestly hate female Marines.
I know, and don't get me wrong, I fucking love the Marine Corps. I just want better for it than the corrupt, immoral prostitutes that are filling the fucking ranks. And this annual training pisses me the fuck off. Like, none of that helps us survive in combat, and we shouldn't be fucking doing it. It's a waste of time that could be spent on actual training, and there are people that are going to die in a ditch in a faraway land because they spent their days learning about sexual assault instead of assaulting the enemy.
True that, man.
I pulled the GTO into the parking lot, killed the engine, stepped out and lit a cigarette. Raynor took off. Glaedwine pulled out a smoke. There's so much fucked up shit in the Marine Corps. I continued my rant. But no one's ever going to fix it because the problems don't affect the people with the power to fix shit. Then those same assholes make stupid fucking decisions that don't have to deal with the fucking consequences.
That's not the Marine Corps. That's America.
It's fucked up how much we fight for America, then no one fights for us. The people in charge keep telling us that they're taking care of us, then feed us to the fucking wolves if they don't eat us themselves. I'm not saying that I'm the most virtuous person that's ever lived, but fuck, dude, someone's got to do something about this Corps.
You're not this contemptible bastard you make yourself out to be.
Nah, I took a drag off my cigarette. The smoke warmed my lungs in the cool winter morning. I've done a lot of fucked up shit, Glaedwine, and I know I'm calling the kettle black, but this shit just pisses me off.
You're a good person, Sergeant. If you were as bad as you're always telling everyone you are, then the ball would have gone differently, and we'd both be in the brig.
Yeah, ain't that fucked up. You could bang your master sergeant for rank, but you can't bang a married chick.
Well, I don't know if I would have actually done anything. Yes, I was drunk. But I don't think I was willing to sacrifice my marriage for that. Although what you said about the next life, I do want you to know that I do.
Glaedwine cut herself off at the sound of footsteps. Raynor came back to the car.
You guys see my keys?
They're in the car, man. Raynor opened the door and snooped around. Yeah, so have you ever read 1001 Arabian Nights? I said, disguising our conversation.
Yeah.
How do you pronounce that chick's name?
Sharon's, Shiraz.
Sherazada Booma Shakalaka.
Yeah, that was it. Aren't books just dreams you hold in your hand?
That's about right. I did like, though, that the stories in there are completely different than they are interpreted now. Like how Aladdin's Chinese.
Oh, there's a lot of them in there. Although I think the whole thing was inspired by the epic of Gilgamesh.
I don't think I read that one. Raynor mumbled something and walked back off.
Oh, it's pretty interesting. I mean, actually, it's the oldest known story. The Sumerians carved it into stones before people were even walking around in Egypt.
Yeah? Tell me about it.
Gilgamesh is the king of Uruk and goes around having sex with everything with tits and nipples.
I already like him.
So the people call to the gods for help, and the gods don't like him either. So they make a monster man named Enkidu to kill Gilgamesh and curse him with terrible nightmares until he dies. So Enkidu shows up to fight Gilgamesh, and instead of killing each other, they bro out and become best friends. But they still play pranks on each other and go on great adventures, killing monsters. So they'll have fame.
Go on.
When the gods see that Enkidu didn't kill Gilgamesh, they curse Enkidu. To death. He falls very ill, and Gilgamesh swears to find a way to save his friend. He knew this old legend about nepotism, who, for all intents and purpose, was Noah. After the ark and the flood, and the gods granted him more life. So Gilgamesh goes to try to find out, who am I going to call Noah, because I can't pronounce Utapanism correctly. And Gilgamesh's journey to the ends of the earth, where there's 2 mountain lines that no one's ever crossed, to a tunnel that no one's ever entered. The tunnel is guarded by giant scorpion men that gave Gilgamesh puzzles that he had to solve to pass. He gets through and goes through this tunnel, and there's a beautiful garden underground, full of all kinds of trees and jewels and gold.
Glaedwine looked at me and then my hand.
Are you all right, Sergeant?
Huh?
You're shaking, and you're about to burn yourself.
I looked down at my hand. My cigarette was burned down to my fingers. I dropped it without bothering to smolder it out. Keep going with the story.
Sergeant, you're white.
Keep going.
Well, there's this waterway Gilgamesh had to cross to get to Noah. And at the mouth, there were 2 stone giants guarding the passageway. Gilgamesh destroys the giants, who the ferryman later told him were the only creatures that could cross the waters of death. So Gilgamesh then goes and cuts down 120 trees to lie across water to get to the island where Noah lives. When he gets there, they had this argument, and Noah eventually tells him his story. The gods didn't like their creation and flooded the earth, but they liked Noah, so they made him build an ark and spared him and his family. Noah gives Gilgamesh some challenges, and he fails all of them. So when Gilgamesh goes to leave, Noah's wife persuades him to tell Gilgamesh a way to immortality. There's a plant that looks like a wolfberry bush, and its berries make the eater immortal, but only grows underwater. So Gilgamesh finds this plant and uses a rock to get deep enough to grab the berries off of the plant. He doesn't eat them though. He tries to go straight back to Enkidu and give them to him so he won't die from being sick. I mean, it's a long journey back. And while Gilgamesh is taking a bath in a river, a snake comes and eats the berries. And Gilgamesh weeps because he's lost his chances of immortality and was now going to lose his friend. And that's pretty much the end. It's not a great ending, but it's a good read.
Glaedwine lit another cigarette.
Sergeant.
She waved her hand in front of my face.
Hey, you okay?
She pushed a finger into my shoulder. I shook my head violently. Yeah, sorry, I was just, I gotta sit down. I put my back against the rear wheel of the Pontiac.
Are you alright?
No. I tried to stop myself from shaking.
What's wrong?
Iraq.
Iraq?
Memories. Sorry. I stared at her for a minute. Can I get that book? I can get that book at a bookstore, right?
Sergeant, I'm not trying to be a bitch. But did that story give you Iraq flashbacks?
Yeah. I had every second of what happened in that cave in Alhilia running through my head at the same time.
Do you want me to leave?
She recognized the awkwardness of the situation. I was sitting with my legs crossed. I took off my cover and stared at the ground under me. I was scratching the crown of my head through my hair. I really didn't want her to go. Just don't tell anyone.
All right. Let me know if you need anything.
She touched my head and walked into the building. I wanted to leave then and bolt to a bookstore, but it was only 1400 and at the very least I'd get some pretty bad paperwork if I left before I was released. I wish life could be simple like it was in the movies and I could just leave and do what I needed to do without negative consequences. I composed myself over half pack of cigarettes. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. When my throat was too coarse to keep from coughing, I forced myself inside to get water. I found a corner where I could be alone, pulled out my phone and looked up the Epic of Gilgamesh. The basic synopsis was what Glaedwine had said and what had been in that cave. When we were finally released from work, half an hour late because Gunny Chansworth felt like being a bitch that afternoon, I changed over and tried to race to the bookstore in Carlsbad. It took me a fucking hour to get off base because of construction and about another hour to get to where I was going. I'm surprised I made it to the store instead of getting out of my car and beating shithead drivers in front of me to death. I found the book and after purchasing it, sat down at the cafe they had and read it cover to cover in almost no time at all.
Doc has to see this.
The trip back to base was a hell of a lot faster, but the thoughts of the similarities between the book and what happened in Iraq were too close. I was still shaking when I kicked in Doc's barracks room door. He looked at me like I was crazy. I grabbed his phone and told the person on the other line, "He'll call you back," and hung it up. It immediately started buzzing.
Fuck, dude, I'm still in deep shit with her.
I shoved the book into Doc's chest. read this.
The fuck, dude? You can't just...
Fucking read it.
Fine, dude. Fuck. But you're gonna have to deal with Christy.
I let the phone keep buzzing and watched Doc read. He was already in a bad mood from a situation with Christy, and I wasn't helping the situation by holding him hostage. His eyes slowly went from anger to intense fear. As he neared the end, he looked up at me.
What the fuck?
Keep reading. When he was done, he held the book open and stared at me.
It's just like that fucking place in Al-Hala. The tunnel, the scorpions, the puzzles, the trees, the waters of death,
And I killed the snake that tried to eat the berries. Then we ate them. We stared wide-eyed at each other long enough for the sun to go down.
Well, what the fuck does this mean?
It means we know why we didn't die in Iran. To be continued.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening to Smokepit Fairytales, Chapter 25. I'd like to thank Chuck LaVoki, Matt, Kupcikevicius, Michele, Packard, Ainswolf, and Hollis Joe McCollum for lending me their voices in this chapter. Wow, and we're done too! Alright, also here's the Patreon and War Chest people. Thank you all for your support so far. Make sure to go, leave this... Also, if you got this far, it would really help me out if you, left a review on Amazon, about the book. That gets people to read it and all that. I'm not quite sure how the scheduling's going to go yet, but I am working on the second book as of August. I'm not wearing this watch, but, as of August when I'm recording this, and hopefully it should be getting on YouTube soon. The chapters will be scheduled on, YouTube, week by week. But they will be going up on Patreon, as soon as I get them done. And then there'll be an audiobook once it's done. So depending on you're watching this, hey, maybe it's in the future, man. Maybe this stuff's already out. All right. Anyway, I will be seeing you real soon. All right. Thanks for listening. Means a lot. Okay. Hey, actually, before you go, comment what your favorite part of the book was. Yeah. That'd be fun. All right. I'll catch you around. See you next time.
So, the moral of the story is not to be a stystander.
Is that too angry?
Glaedwine. They were a knee-jacked. They were knee-jacked.
I thought it was funny, but...
Not really. I'm letting my borrow body.
Oh my god, this is the end of the script. What the fuck?
The woman comes back, drinks the drinks, and He was already in a bad mood from a situation with Christy, and I wasn't helping the situation by holding him hostage. Holding him hostage. Holding his sausage. Holding him hostage.
Woo! Yeah, baby! End of the audio book. If I had a gun, I think I would fire it into the ceiling. It's a probably good thing that I don't have one.